Hi guys, hope everyone's well and welcome back to the Improvement Podcast. So in episode 179, I'm going to touch on maintaining motivation and enjoyment for training and your fitness journey as a whole. And the reason behind this episode is if we do have better enjoyment and better motivation, it's going to yield better adherence, most likely better training effort, and also less perceived stress, and overall just being in a better headspace throughout the process of reaching your goals, which of course is going to be a net positive. So before kind of jumping into the episode, although I'm doing an episode is kind of ironic and hypocritical as it might sound, like don't rely on motivation. Yes, you want, yes, it's good being motivated, and it's ideal being motivated, but we don't want to rely on it. The way to look at it is, yes, motivation's good when it's there, but when motivation's not there, our actions we want to remain unchanged. When you get up and you're feeling motivated, or you're not feeling motivated, your days should look the same. They're ideally like if someone was watching you go about your day, they shouldn't be able to tell a difference. That's basically how we want to execute and carry out our days if we want to reach our goals and get get results. And basically, if you want to carry yourself to a high standard, that's how we should pretty much act. So yeah, when enjoyment wavers, when motivation wavers, practice discipline. But of course, we want to put things in place to maintain motivation, enjoyment, and we should be like there'll be times where you're not going to be motivated. Like if you're in a gaining phase and you're really pushing it hard towards the end, and you need a deload, or if you're getting really lean and you're feeling the effects of the dieting phase, like nobody wakes up and they feel like buzzing all the time to get to the gym. It's completely normal to feel like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And in terms of the first thing I'm going to touch on is highlight tangible progressions. So this will be dependent on whatever phase you're in. Meaning, if you're in a dieting phase, then tangible progression could be scale weight dropping. It could be the visuals, or in other words, the look improving. It could be holding performance. It could be having the same performance while dieting down. And in a gaining phase, you could look at it as performance. You could look at it as what areas look bigger. You could look at it as seeing scale weight gradually going up if you struggle in terms of getting the food in, appetite, hunger. And you want to make sure it's the tangible progressions on that phase. What I mean by that is when you're dieting, you shouldn't be thinking you should, or a better example is when you're gaining, for example, you shouldn't be looking at right what areas look leaner, what areas look like they're getting more detail, or what areas are looking more vascular, because that's going to fade. Like so, shift your mindset, shift your focus on where you're actually going to see yourself move forwards. Same like if I'm at the end of prep, if I get like if I expect to be progressing every single lift, every single time I step in the gym, I'm just going to hate the process. It's not feasible, it's not sustainable. Whereas I can retain some things. So retention is there a win. So it's important when you are at kind of the end of, let's say, a diet, shifting maybe your focus towards retention as a form of progression. Because ultimately, if you have done the same load for the same amount of reps, but your body weight's lighter and you've not done that before, that's a win. So it's important to just kind of shift your focus in that regard, because if not, you'll just get frustrated and have a lack of enjoyment. So, and that will be different for the individual. Like if someone's overweight, they've just started training, then they're dieting down, then they probably don't need to worry about kind of losing performance when they're dieting. However, if someone's, let's say, getting very, very lean, they've got like really good level of strength, then it's going to become more of an issue, if that makes sense. So it'll be dependent on the individual. And a tangible progression for yourself could just be hitting your sessions that week. So just because someone else, a tangible progression for them could be not, let's say, deadlifting 210 kilos instead of 200, that doesn't mean that a tangible progression for you is not just getting off the couch or getting some steps in or not eating a full bag of Doritos. And I'm not saying that in a mean, rude, or trying to take the mick at all. It's true. Like everyone starts somewhere, so just focus on being better in yourself. Next thing I'm going to touch on is relate your tasks to your long-term goals. I think this helps a lot with enjoyment and motivation. So usually when we're not motivated, when we don't enjoy something, when we don't see, it's because we don't see value in it. If you don't see value in it, you're not going to get done. Like if someone's thinking, like what I see often is when clients who are in a or in a dieting phase head into a gaining phase with myself, they start to maybe slack on their steps, whereas that was nailed when they were dieting. Why? Because they've lost the value they see in their steps. They think, oh, I'm not losing weight, so it doesn't matter if I don't hit my steps, whereas it still does. So make sure you kind of highlight every single kind of box you tick, goal you have towards your long-term progression. Like, because all these mini wins add up. So in terms of nutrition, you can be like, every time you get a protein serving in, it's like, this is me contributing towards recovery and muscle growth. Every time you get some steps in when you're maybe in a gaining phase, maybe you could say this is helping my mental health, helping my sleep. Because if something helps stress management, it's gonna therefore have another benefit, which will be improving sleep. Because whatever improves stress generally improves your sleep quality. And it could be like regarding just getting your water in. You know you're gonna have a good session, so kind of highlight all those little wins because they add up into big wins pretty much. All these small little boxes you tick on a daily basis is what will contribute towards your long term goals. So making sure you relate it to it. And also, just your perception as a whole. This isn't something I've got in my notes, but when you are going about your fitness journey and going about everyday tasks, change your mindset on things. Like some people think, oh, I need to go to the gym, I need to train legs, I need to do this, I need to do steps. See if you break your legs tomorrow, you're going to be like, I'm gutted I can't train legs, I'm gutted I can't walk. So don't take for granted what you can do on a daily basis. It's very easy to do. People don't have access to a well equipped gym. People don't access to a pair of working legs. People don't have access to clean drinking water. So try and practice gratitude. It helps massively, in my opinion. Just makes you grateful for whatever phase you're in, whatever you're going through. And even if, let's say, you're dieting, it sucks a bit, you're near the end of it, yes, you could be like, oh, this sucks. I've got to eat chicken and lettuce. I've got to eat, you know what I mean? I've not got much carbs available. Or you could be like, this is amazing. I get to push myself. I get to develop myself. I get to step forward with my goals. And I get to eat, you know what I mean, 5 healthy meals a day. Like, it's not a bad thing, is it? There's people definitely worse off. There's people who'd love to be in that position. So just making sure you kind of change that mindset perspective, I think helps a lot. And as for the training side of things, so making sure with your training you have like a training split you enjoy. Obviously, there's a balance to it because if training for results is a bit different than training for enjoyment, but obviously, if you enjoy getting results, you'll somewhat enjoy the process of training. So there's a balancing act to be had. But basically, with our training, you want to have a good balance between making sure it's effective, but making sure you also enjoy it. Like if you're heading to the gym, you hate every session, you hate your training split, hate the movements in your program. Sometimes having movements or having a training split that's maybe suboptimal or not maybe perfect on paper could be more favourable if it leads to better adherence, better effort, and as a result, more progress as a result of that. So make sure you've got a split, you've got exercises that you select that suit yourself, and even if it comes down to the order you do them in, and that's some things you can consider. You can also consider setting yourself performance-based goals. So when it comes to like a gaining phase, people lose a lot of motivation because they lose that sense of urgency, they lose that vision, and they don't again highlight them lifting more, progressing or lifts towards their long-term goals. So they feel like they're just stagnant to some extent because you don't see the visual changes on a week-to-week basis. However, your best indicator if you are progressing, if you are building tissue, is going to be your lifts. So what will help you progress your lifts is neurological adaptations. In other words, just getting efficient at those movement patterns, just getting skilled at that movement. After you've got skilled at that movement, what will help you progress your lifts is just adding new tissue, adding new muscle. So if we keep progressing our lifts, that's going to contribute towards new muscle getting built. So every time you take a wee progression, highlight that to yourself. Tell yourself you've stepped forward, you've moved forward, you've took that wee mini win, because those mini wins, like I said, do add up. So that helps a ton. And set yourself goals when it comes to like a gaining phase or even in a dieting phase of like retaining certain numbers. Or if you're gaining, set yourself a goal of wanting to hit certain numbers on certain lifts. If that's, let's say, certain amount on your squat, certain amount on a deadlift, even the smaller movements as well. Or it could be in terms of training, just consistency based goals. But set yourself goals so that you've got something short term to work towards, which will help you not only be more consistent, maintain motivation and enjoyment, but also be more likely to work towards and reach those long-term goals. You can also consider picking an environment you like training in. So if, let's say, you hate training in a certain environment, like pick a different gym. Do whatever will help you kind of adhere to your training more effectively in terms of that training environment. And obviously, with your training environment, you want to consider like what's sustainable in terms of going on a frequent basis. But if you got the choice between two gyms and you really like training at one instead of the other, like maybe it's worth paying that extra bit of money if it's going to yield better adherence, better training consistency. You can also consider like having a training partner as well if you don't enjoy training yourself. Or to be fair, if your goals aren't to get absolutely massive or build as much muscle as possible, and you don't really like weight training but you like doing another form of exercise, do that. Obviously, I'm not really selling my coaching service to you because it's based on kind of helping people through resistance-based training. That's kind of what I specialise in. But if you love doing circuits, whatever, do that. Do what you can adhere to an extent. And what I'd recommend as well is make sure you've got a logbook. Make sure you logbook your lifts. So by logbook, I mean you can either use your phone, but I think a pen and paper can be good to stop you getting distracted on your phone. Log exactly what load you get, reps you get on a session to session basis. And then every time you come in the gym, that's your goal. Your goal is to beat that. That means you go into the gym, you've got intent, you've got purpose with your training, so you're not just going through the motions, or you're not going in mindlessly training or with no goal or no purpose to work towards. So logbook all your lifts, and bear in mind, whenever we're logbooking and progressing our lifts, we always want to make sure we keep our form standardized or the same. If you are maybe adding weight to a movement but you're speeding it up on the way down, you are, let's say, not going as deep. Maybe you are changing your foot position, your arm position. You might not actually be progressing your lifts. That might actually be regression because the goal is not to lift more load. The goal is to progress the stimulus, and more load doesn't always equate to getting a greater stimulus on that target muscle. So remember that when it comes to your execution, keep it standardized or the same. Because if you've kind of got that extra bit of weight but you've sped it up, then you've kind of cheated yourself out that progression. And what I like to do is see if I'm going for a progression, if anything, I'll make that last rep even slower. So I know I've owned that progression, I've earned that rep, and I've not got it from just basically bouncing out the bottom of a squat or not going as deep on the bench press, etc. Because then that's not progression. And in terms of my next point, it's going to be tied into sleep, nutrition, and stress management. So see if like you're full of energy, you're well slept, you're well rested, you've got good overall health, and just you feel good on a daily basis. Your ability to enjoy training is going to be far higher. Your ability to be motivated is going to be far higher. Whereas if someone's, let's say, diet quality is absolutely horrendous, or their sleep quality is horrendous, or they're stressed through the roof, they're not going to feel good from an energy point of view and just a mental point of view, which will then therefore affect how motivated and how much they enjoy the training process and the fitness process as a whole. So making sure they're in a good spot helps everything else fall into place. Same with your ability to progress in the gym. If your stress, sleep, nutrition's in a good spot, everything else falls into place. And if you are in a bit of a rut with things, or you've kind of fell out of the gym, you've not been going, what can help as well is just stick with it. Stick with it when that motivation's not there, just to get back into it. Because what you often find is when you're starting or when you're getting back into it, if you're weaker, if you're not performing well, if you're not progressing well, you're not going to enjoy it, of course. Whereas when that enjoyment comes is when you start seeing the progression. So you need to get through that rubbish, boring, difficult period where you're not really progressing. Maybe you're slower than usual, you're lifting less than usual. You need to get through that period to then get to the period where you are progressing. You need to have the initial bad week, initial boring week, initial boring period to have the good week afterwards. So just remember that when it comes to like the adherence side of things. Sometimes motivation comes as a byproduct of consistency. What helps you be motivated is seeing progression. What helps you see progression is being consistent. So it's a byproduct of consistency, you could say. What you can also do, and what I like to do for my clients if applicable, is map out a timeline. So map out a timeline of how long you look to gain for, what weight you're roughly looking to be by a certain timeline or by a certain day, or sorry, week, month, etc. over like the next year, when you're looking to spend dieting, and then what that gives you is a sense of urgency. See if you think, oh, I'm gonna diet at some point this year. Whereas if you think instead, all right, I've got now until maybe July to gain, which only gives me, let's say, 3 months, and then after that I've got a diet where I want to look my best, and I'll be dieting for 3 months. So I really, really need to nail this period. I've only got 3 months to improve. I've only got 90 days to improve. Then that gives you a kick up the bum and you think, right, I need to get myself into gear, because you've not got long to ultimately make the improvements you want to make to your physique. So give yourself a sense of urgency, give yourself a timeline. So to quickly summarise, you're not always going to be motivated, you're not always going to enjoy things, but you've still got goals to hit. So in my opinion, it's still an expectation to still tick those boxes regardless if enjoyment's there, unless you don't want results. And make sure you highlight your tangible progressions based on what phase you're in, inside and outside the gym. Change your perception of what a good session is. When you're dieting, you're very lean, retention's a win. And also, be grateful. Be grateful you get to train. Be grateful you get to be in like a well-equipped gym, or you get to eat healthy meals, and that can change your perspective and your mindset, and put you in a better headspace. Make sure you relate all the wee boxes you need to tick on a daily basis, like getting to bed on time, hitting those steps, eating nutritious food towards your long-term goals, and realize that you're moving forwards every time you tick that box. Give yourself that sense of accomplishment. And what can help with that, actually, sorry, this was supposed to be a quick summary, but having like a to-do list, ticking each task off as it goes along. Also, with your training, having performance-based goals, having an environment you like training in with a training partner as well, potentially. Logbook your lifts. Try and be at every session and go in the gym with intent. And lastly, make sure sleep, nutrition, and stress management's in a good spot, so you'll have good energy, which will yield better motivation. As if you're tired and you've got a lack of energy all the time, you're never going to be motivated. Usually, when you're motivated, it's not times when you're knackered, it's times when you're full of energy. And also, map out a timeline for yourself. It'll give you a sense of urgency and help you stay on track. Hope you all enjoyed the episode. Any topics you'd like covered, feel free to let me know and I'll happily consider them. If there's any guests you'd also like on the podcast, let me know and I'd consider that too. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and any support is massively appreciated, whether that's liking, subscribing, sharing this on your Instagram story and tagging at the Improvement Podcast, at Charlie J. Cuthbert, or any other form of support if that's a comment.